always say, that's when webinars officially start. Hi, my name is Mike Blinder. I am the publisher of the E&P magazine, which Wikipedia calls still, I can't get it changed, the Bible of the newspaper industry. And when we were quoted in the Wall Street Journal last month, they called me the newspaper trade publication. We are honored with our 140-year-old heritage of being the fiber, the chronicle of an amazing industry. But we're so much more than that today. We're talking to educators. We're talking to, of course, senior level management of large and small media companies, digital startups, nonprofits. Our audience are, but we still have print in our DNA, which is why I'm so proud to be hosting this webinar. Before we get to it, let's do a little housekeeping, if I may. You are in a platform called Zoom. And you'll notice at the bottom of Zoom, you've got a bunch of controls and things. There's one that's called raise hand. I don't know what it means, but Megan has raised her hand. Megan, don't do that anymore because I don't know how to respond to that. But there is a chat, and that's the most important thing, because during our webinars, what we like to do at ENP is make the chat room a separate forum where you can agree, disagree, add your own thoughts, ask questions, and we'll get those to our panelists. You can't talk because there's over 200, just about 200 registered for this puppy, and I can't turn on all your mics. So I want to, and one of the things that they do in chat in Zoom is they default it that you, when you go in there, it says just to talk to the panelists. Now I've set my controls so you can talk to everyone. And then what I want you to do is go into chat and don't just ask questions of the panelists and talk to us. Take it down one notch to everyone. And to test that, to make sure people are listening to me and understand how to use chat, we're going to have an experiment. We're going to talk about the current gas prices of today. I'm going to type in what I paid in Nashville recently for gas. Let's see if I can get it to go out there right now. There you go. So you're now seeing me, and I want you to type in the city you're from and what you saw on the latest gas sign or what have you. That way you're already defaulted to everyone, and everybody can then see in our vibrant chat room what the hell you're paying for gas right now. I know it's an awful thing to start off with, but at least we're discussing it. Now to the webinar. We've got an amazing topic today, printing under pressure. And I want to talk about that. Print production has entered a very different era than the one publishers operated in just a few years ago. And we all know that. Paper pricing is all over the place, up and down. Supply chain disruptions are happening as we speak. Of course, we have tariffs, mill consolidation, and global trade pressures are making what we once was a very predictable process far more volatile and difficult to forecast. At the same time, publishers are still under massive pressure to maintain quality. I'm a print publisher, and I'd have to do that. I got to hit a deadline. I got to manage my budget to serve both print and digital audiences simultaneously. And when I look at my top line revenue and my bottom line expenses, that print cost is constantly going up. It's changing and what have you, and it's causing a lot of confusion. Today's conversation is not about doom and gloom, though. Print remains incredibly important to many publishers and communities across the country. But operational discipline, planning, and strong partnerships matter more than ever. Our goal today in our dialogue and our journey is to cut through the noise and give publishers a practical understanding of what is really happening across today's paper supply chain and what you can do and what these print operations can do to navigate these challenges with more clarity and confidence. So I'm honored to bring in a wonderful panel. We got Steve Sassman, Territory Manager. I'm going to make sure I say the name correctly, Billerud. Am I correct, Steve? You can turn on your mic and just make sure you're with us.
That is correct.
I got Steven Genter, Director of Marketing for Billerud. Angie Stroud. Angie, you're with us, are you not? And you're the Marketing Intelligence Manager. Say hey, Angie.
Hello.
And the most important person, at least to us at ENP. And I'm going to tell you why. His name is Dave Sanchez, and he's the sales manager at Publication Printers. By the way, Pub Printers is a supporter of us, and they do an amazing center spread. I'll be honest with you, Dave, Carly and your designs are so cool in my magazine, the way you use that center spread, that I should be paying you for the privilege to put your ads in my magazine.
Well, we'll take the check anytime.
But you are one of the premier printers. I know many of the larger print operations use you. They use your expertise. And one of the things I wanted to brag on that Dave did is Dave put together this webinar and kept saying to me, I don't want to sell during this. I don't want to make this about publication printers. Although that's your right, because you're paying for this time. You said, I want to make this an informational forum to help even customers of other print shops. Correct, sir? That was your
That is
mission.
absolutely correct. I think my publishers are inundated every day with salespeople trying to sell them something. And I think from a printer standpoint, we need to spend a lot more time on educating than we do on trying to sell something. And education to me is high on the list for all of our publishers. And this, I hope, really brings a lot of education to them.
But feel free just for a second, if you don't mind, to tell us a little. I know every time I read your emails at the bottom, it says official printer of the Denver Broncos. It's still, I used to manage a radio station in Grand Junction. It's still Go Orange, right? Is that the color there?
That is.
Okay, go. But just tell us a little bit about the operation, its history, its heritage, who you guys are, if you don't mind.
Printing company, web printing company with 9 webs on the floor. We've been in the industry for over 40 years. We have over 1,000 titles that we print, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, really servicing the publishing industry throughout the United States. We have accounts in every state. So we're a busy company. We have grown quite a bit over the years. I've been here 30 years now, and have never not seen a year where we've grown. Surrounded by some incredible people here that do wonderful work, and they make my life easy. They really do. And our customers at the same time. We don't look out so much out to running and getting a new customer based on price or something. We really try to go out and get a partner, somebody that we can partner with for long term, just like our relationship with Billerud here. We've been with them for a lot of years, and we appreciate their partnership.
What a wonderful segue, because now I'm going to turn things over to Steve Sassman over at Billerud. Steve, again, your chance to give us the elevator pitch, if you don't mind. Who the heck is Billerud? I'll be honest with you. I've heard your name. I'm on the board of ING International Newspaper Group, but that's not because I understand printing. It's because we salute their operational R-stars every year, and I'm honored to present at the ING conference the winners. But you're a huge company. When I dived into you, you are not small. You're all over the world. Am I correct, sir?
You are. We operate globally, send paper everywhere. We have 9 production facilities, 6 in Europe, 3 in North America. Our annual sales are currently over 4 billion with a 10% EBITDA. We're recognized on the Dow Jones Sustainability Indices too. We take sustainability very seriously. 100% of our pulp and all our wood sourcing is all through sustainable forestry management companies. You can see over on the right hand side, it's kind of our breakdown of our paper. We do more globally. We do a lot of packaging papers, but North America, all our operations here, really our 3 plants here all do the graphic papers that the publishing industry would use. So we kind of have a supply chain advantage in that industry because it's all produced here in North America. But 47% of our products produced are paper-based materials. We have another 43% that are more in the carton board industry, think folding carton, etc. And 10% of our production is pulp. We have over 6,000 employees, but we are a quality, cost, and service leader in the graphic paper and packaging industries. What else? We're going back to sustainability. By 2040, we will be net zero. That's our goal for net zero carbon. And
wow.
North America is a little further behind in some of that production sustainability compared to Europe, but we spent $125 million in 2025 to advance some of that, and by 2030 we're going to greatly reduce our scope 1, 2, and 3 numbers.
I got to swing this back to Mr. Sanchez for just a second. You put together this webinar when I met with you and said, hey, we got to do a webinar. It's part of our agreement. You get 2 of these puppies a year. and you said, I want to bring in Billerud. Why is this the company that you selected, sir? I mean, in your opinion, could
Well,
you?
there's one of our strategic partners that we've had for many, many years, and we've relied on them for a lot of paper over the years. And we're not a printing company that's jumping from mill to mill to mill based on 10 cents a hundredweight. We're really not. We're somebody that wants to have very strong relationships with our partners, just like we look for the partners in the publishing side with our publishers. We know that right now the revenue that magazines are being put under to generate, it's almost impossible with the influx of postage rising, paper rising, freight rising. It's just all around them. And we're constantly looking for different revenue ideas for the publishers beyond print just to help them. But printing is about 60% of their outlay every month. And within that bill, that it's the largest bill that they get from any of their vendors is their printer. And inside that bill, about 60% of our invoice to the publisher is paper. And so knowing that, we really need to talk about paper and where it's going, what's going on with it, what's the future look like? How do we pivot? Can we pivot? What's available in the market? And there's nobody better in my mind to talk about that but Billerud.
Well, let's bring in Steve Gentner now. Steve, you're you are like kind of the go-to guy when it comes to doing presentations. You're director of marketing, which means you're most probably the face at conferences, and you're out there speaking on the stump. Angie, you stick around. We're going to talk to you because you're market intelligence manager in a second. But we're going to stay with Mr. Gentner first. So I'm going to start with you. Let's stop talking about the companies and start talking about the meat of the conversation that people came in for today. What are the hundreds and hundreds that will be watching this recording in the months to come? What are the biggest forces creating instability and unpredictability in today's paper market? And what's part of that? What's making that? Is it temporary? Is it forever? And are we ever going to sleep well at night? That's the question I want to ask
I
you.
can't,
So
I
set it
can't
up.
guarantee, I can't guarantee that, Mike. First of all, thank you, Mike and Dave, for bringing Billerud into this conversation and giving us a chance to speak to some of the challenges you've mentioned there. I think I've got a few slides here that I'd like to share that would speak to some of those questions that you had asked. So if it's appropriate, I can dive into it.
Please do share your slides.
Okay.
And by the way, those that are watching this or in the recording, keep in mind that there will be a landing page on editorandpublisher.com for this specific webinar. And in that landing page, if we're real nice to Mr. Gentner, he will share those slides and allow you to see them and download them. Is that okay, Mr. Gentner? Can I promise that?
Yes, you can.
All right, that
Absolutely.
deck will be available. You can share it with teammates or what have you. Take it away, Steve.
All right, very good. Well, I'm going to talk about coated free sheet papers for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's the largest product in volume that we make here in Billerud, North America. I think it's an excellent proxy for the printing and writing grades that we're going to cover. And I'll start out with just taking a long-term look at demand. This is a 20-year look at the demand of coated free sheet. I will mention that uncoated free sheet follows similar compound annual growth rate declines of about 5%. When we start talking about coated groundwood, uncoated groundwood, and news, the decline is more double digit, 10, 11%. So that's a little bit background there. And as you look back through this chart, I think we all agree that printing writing papers, specifically coated, kind of peaked in 2006. It's by no accident that the iPhone was invented in 2007 and became the means for a lot of information, news, sports, passing back and forth, and I think is a big contributor to the multi-year decline we have going here. You can see in 2009 with the Great Recession, the impact it had on coated free sheet demand. Some recovery, and for a period of about 8 years there, it was fairly steady decline. And then we got into the COVID period, paper shortage. But the long view of this, it's on a long-term secular decline.
How about We got a question in the chat room. Hope you don't mind interrupting you. Do you produce newsprint as well, not just free coated free sheet, correct?
We do not, Mike. We
Okay.
produce coated free sheet, coated groundwood, some uncoated free sheet, a little bit of uncoated groundwood, but no news.
Okay, no problem. But and you said the decline is more double digit there in the newsprint, correct?
News over this period of time is about 11%.
11%. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so just recent trends. I just want to point out that within coated free sheet, it's a 6% decline. The long run publication, catalog magazine type work is experiencing more like a 7% decline. If it's a sheet fed offset press, that particular type of printing is more stable, but still declining about 4%. And then if you get in some digital printing, specifically inkjet, it's actually growing off a much smaller base. I just wanted to note that. So, maybe mitigating a risk here would be aligning with print markets and methods that are stable to growing, and moving equipment in that direction would be my point here.
Okay. So keep giving us the lay of the land, sir.
Yes, sir. So a little bit on imports. To the paper maker, the decline in demand is one thing, but you can also see in this chart that over that period of time, specifically the last 8 years, the percent of demand that imports made up grew. So that just puts further pressure on shipments from the domestic suppliers. Just a note here, obviously, if you're aligned with imports from overseas, they are susceptible to labor issues, whether it's mill strikes, port strikes, rail strikes, ocean freight rates, tariffs, and geopolitical events. Those are all things that have happened over the last decades that I've been involved, more frequently than North American supply. And so I would just say to mitigate that risk, our recommendation, a little self-serving, but would be to partner with domestic suppliers and giving print buyers more control over the supply and the supply chains.
All right.
One step further into imports would just be for coated free sheet papers. There are 3 bars on the left represent the average monthly rate for the last 3 years, and the other bars are the last 12 months. And just to point out that about 80% of the coated free sheet imports originate from either South Korea and or the EU countries, and they have been assessed 15% tariffs since the tariffs were put in over a year ago until February. We'll talk a little bit more about tariffs a little later here, but just kind of point out they are in this market. They're fairly stable, kind of unchanged. They're very committed to this market. Just to dip into some of the factors impacting supply and market pricing of paper, as you noted when you started this call, I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple slides on supply and demand. We'll talk about tariffs, the status of tariffs, and the inflationary cost, or just the cost of goods sold. A little bit busy slide, but the same time frame, and the light gray bars are the total shipments from the domestic suppliers, and the capacity is the darker bars. And to get to the operating rate, it's just the shipments divided by capacity. My point here, one of my points, is that through that period of time with a larger green box on top, operating rates were fairly stable in coated free sheet papers, high 80s, low 90s, fairly stable. As you move to the right, the other green box, you see a lot more fluctuation. Speaking to your point earlier, it seems like there's more variability, more turmoil maybe in operating rates that take place. I guess the point I would make, if you go back to 2005, there were 24 North American coated free sheet mills that averaged 232,000 tons each. You go to the right, these days there are just 5 coated free sheet paper mills left, and they're averaging 317,000 tons. So many fewer mills, much larger mills, and as those mills are forced to a decision of closure or conversion, it makes a much bigger impact on the operating rate. So it's just kind of the dynamics of the supply and demand that are taking place there.
Would you,
Um,
is this similar to the newsprint as well, sir? Just because we have, go
I
ahead.
would bet that I would bet that's very true, Mike. I mean, it's when you have a lot of mills, it's pretty common that the smaller mills go out first. They're probably cost disadvantaged for some reason, and then you get to just a few anchor of mills left that they're much larger
All right.
in scale.
Well said.
Yeah. And one more slide on supply and demand. So in the coated free sheet space, you can see there was a significant reduction in supply over here on the right-hand side in 2020, 2021. We had the conversion of Sappi paper machine number one at Somerset Mill. Verso Wisconsin Rapids Mill went out. Nine Dragons Rumford went out, or converted, I should say, and then the Luke Mill also. So again, big mills that were forced to go out with the significant drop in shipments and demand in that period of time. And then most recently last year, paper machine number two at Sappi Somerset was converted, and that's all public information. And this is what the landscape is left with 1.5 million tons and three major suppliers servicing a coated free sheet market. If I switch to tariffs for a minute, and it's you could put somebody on full time on your staff to try to keep up with tariffs. It's seems like it's changing frequently, but the Supreme Court shot down the IEEPA tariffs, the International Emergency and Economic Powers Act, uh, earlier this year in February. That was actually a federal law that was enacted in 1977. But the court ruled 6-3 that the president can regulate importation, but does not include the power to impose tariffs. Tariffs are a congressional power, and that's the reason why the Supreme Court overruled it. Almost immediately, a few days later, the administration imposed another action called Section 122 tariffs at 10% across the board, while they were, exploring other durable actions. That particular section allows for up to 15%, but it was a policy choice to stay at 10%. So just last month, the Court of International Trade challenged that Section 122 tariffs, and they ruled that it was unlawful. This happens to be the same court that handled the IEEPA tariff judgment. Although the tariffs are still, largely being collected, and this whole this unlawful ruling is pending appeal. So we're in this 150-day window. The Section 122 tariffs can only last 150 days. And during that period of time, the administration has launched 301 tariffs. 301 tariffs are country specific. To date, really, there's only 301 tariffs implemented on China, and they were actually implemented in Trump's first term. But the current administration is investigating a number of other countries to consider under 301 tariffs. Typically, those investigations to get them to a final state for review by a court take 6 to 12 months. But the administration is working overtime to accelerate that because they know they have to do something by July 24th. And the other option the administration has is to consider 232 tariffs, which are product specific. And the Trump administration has used them in several cases, steel, aluminum, and so on. So those are kind of some of the actions that are taking place now. And as I tie that back to the importation of coated free sheet, I mentioned that between South Korea and the EU, they make up 80% of the imports. And through that period of time, the chart's a little difficult to read here. The level of tariff is on the bottom and the tariff utilized is on the bottom. So that we had the IEEPA tariffs at 10%, then we had the IEEPA tariffs at 15%. Now we're in this 10% Section 122 with no data to report yet. But it's interesting to me, and not what I expected, that the tariff from those countries and regions stayed relatively constant through the whole period of time, which I guess means that those importers probably did not pass on those costs. the tariffs act like a added cost on imports. So if the importers do pass them along, then it usually leads to reduced imports. But not the case here with the tariffs that were in play. Switching over to the inflationary cost, I would just share that the solid line here is RISI's benchmark for 60-pound coated free sheet. The dotted line is the producer's price index. And you can see from 2005 to 2017, during that period of time, fairly stable pricing, although the input prices went up mostly a little bit down. In fact, during that period of time, PPI increased 2.2%, while paper prices actually declined 13%. And that was when the big change happened that you kind of referred to, Mike. We had the 100% operating rates, we had extreme inflation, and that was a cause of a big run-up in pricing into 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're back kind of in that period of time where it's leveling out. The forecast is for a slight increase. RISI usually recognizes a couple of percent increase in price in their forecast per year. And so that's kind of leveled out at a new plateau.
Mm-hmm.
And here's just a couple slides on postal, and then I think I'm probably going to open up for questions and turn it over to Angie. But the postal rate increase was roughly 4% until 2016, and then the USPS was given additional rate authority to address density issues and retirement costs. And so there was a big spike in 2017. And since that time, as most everybody on this call knows, the postal rate increases have been averaging about 9% per year. So that's certainly been a burden. But what's kind of interesting and seems like a breath of fresh air is we have a new U.S. Postmaster General. We had a couple of employees from Billerud at the ACMA conference down in D.C. It's the American Commerce Marketing Association we're a part of. And they got a chance to hear from the new Postmaster General, David Steiner. And he certainly delivered a very blunt message of how they're very financially, unsustainable position at this point. But he was also vowing to work closely with commercial mailers to drive growth. It was a very much different tone than the previous Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, was delivering at the same conference. Stark contrast for sure. So he's just promising to be more of a partner and look for ways to incent and find promotions that will make it easier and less expensive to mail. So that was his major overall tone. The bottom line, the USPS is indeed in financial crisis, but they are pivoting. If you think about the USPS, it's kind of a losing model. They must provide mail to address the United States, regardless of geography or cost. The delivery points increase 1 to 2 million addresses per year, while obviously the costs are going up for labor and fuel and logistics. Congress mandates delivery every 6 days. So it's not a model that can self-sustain itself, which is what Louis DeJoy was pursuing. And I think David Steiner recognizes that.
So there's so much here that does parallel to the newsprint world. Because a good deal of our audience is still printing on newsprint, although many are shifting now, especially with the new. We're doing a lot of reporting on those new electronic printers for small runs, if you know what I mean, where we're doing them actually on copy machines almost that are specially designed. But what parallels are you seeing here as you show us your world obviously what's going on with the Postal Service is definitely transcend all print. But when you see your supply and demand issues and supply chain issues and tariff issues, they pretty much parallel newsprint, do they not, sir?
I think they do. I think those major cost components really also transcend over to news, where we're talking about input costs, we're talking about tariffs, supply and demand. I think most of what I touched on, if not all of it.
Right. What about
news.
we have a question here from Rich who says, are supply chains and wait times back to pre-COVID levels, in your opinion?
Are they back to pre-COVID levels, the supply
Yeah.
chain? Yes, certainly domestically they are. And even if you're buying an import, they're pretty good right now. Of course, with the geopolitical events taking place, the ocean freight rates are starting to climb. That's something to watch. But supply chains within North America, in my opinion, yeah, they're back to normal.
Do you have a sense on how much pressure is on newsprint supply due to demand for cardboard and the economics for mills to produce newsprint, which has a declining demand? Do you have any?
Is the question if some of those mills might be converting over to make
Yeah,
cardboard?
yes,
Yeah. I think that's very possible. I don't study the newsprint market or the producers all that much, but I am aware of some facilities that are doing just what we're doing, learning how to make grades that are growing and to keep the mill viable as grades they are making decline.
All right, you want to swing it to Angie now? Angie, you've been sitting there patiently with us. What do you have for us to educate us on the issues that are impacting the volatility of the print industry today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Mike and Dave, for inviting me to talk about something that we're very passionate about at Billerud, which is the continued power that print holds as a marketing and communications channel.
Yes.
So this is a topic that we discuss quite a bit. We're very active in researching market trends to help our customers make the case for print. As Steve mentioned, most of our customers are not newsprint. None of our customers are newsprint customers. We don't make newsprint, but most of our customers leverage print through direct mail, catalogs, magazines, books. But the reasons print is so effective aren't just tied to those end-use applications. The benefits that I'm going to talk about today are relevant no matter what your end-use application is. So it's really the overall benefits of print on paper. So I'm just going to review some research, recent research studies that we've looked at on how print performs, and hopefully the audience will be able to translate that into whatever their end use, if it's newspapers or whatever the end use is. It's really about the power of print. So you can see this first slide. I think there's about 5 different studies. I have a slide for each that kind of just promote what's going on with print. The first one is this Franklin Madison Direct study. They conduct an annual direct mail benchmark report to understand the impact of direct mail on consumers. And this year, direct mail, which they define as letters, postcards, and catalogs, it continues to deliver meaningful value. So you can see some of the numbers. 79% of consumers engage with the mail they receive. And then the survey respondents ranked direct mail as the second most influential ad channel for purchases, and that's behind TV ads. In fact, 1 in 5 consumers made a purchase because of a relevant direct mail piece that they received in the past 6 to 12 months. 56% of marketers stated their direct mail program improved performance in the past 12 months. I think direct mail marketers are understanding more how to utilize direct mail and target their audiences much better because of the data that they have on their end. So direct mail programs continue to improve in efficiency and effectiveness. Only 42% said their results for their program held steady, and a very small share experienced what they considered a decline in performance. Because of the effectiveness, over half of marketers increased their direct mail budgets over the past 12 months. And that's consistent with findings across the industry with surveys conducted by Chief Marketer, the ANA, and Lob.com. They all had the same findings. So that's just one of the studies around direct mail. And I do have the sources you can see when we give this presentation out. If you want to go and look at the actual research studies, if you're interested, you can find them on each page, each slide. So Steve, if you go to the next one, this one is around just print usage. We've heard for I don't know how many years that print is dead. And I think it's been dying, they think, every year. But you look at these studies and you realize that print usage is actually on the increase. So this was a survey done by a studio by Informa Tech Target, and it was done for FedEx Office. So they talked to 150 leaders across 6 industries and wanted to understand how they're using print to stand out. And they found a sharp shift in how organizations think about physical brand experiences, which I think everybody here understands with the digital onslaught that consumers are experiencing, how the physical brand experience, even for the younger generation, is very impactful. There's been a lot of generational studies on print and the effectiveness of Gen Z, millennials. I always get all of those confused. I know Gen Z is the young group, but they love print and they love to have those physical brand experiences. Over the past 2 years, 46% of the organizations that were surveyed by this particular study had increased their print usage, and only 21% decreased it. And mainly because they wanted to create more tactile customer experiences so they could stand out from their competition, who a lot of people are relying solely on digital marketing right now. And these weren't small organizations. These are nearly 80% of the organizations that this survey hit spent about $250,000 annually on print materials, and about 45% exceeded $1 million a year on print. So the surveys across the industry showed that print usage is expanding. There's an increased volume, budget allocation, and number of use cases. So they're looking at not just direct mail or catalogs, but they're looking at other ways, event marketing and things like that they can use print to create that actual physical experience. And for this year, around 3 in 5 respondents to this survey said their top communication priorities were enhancing customer and audience engagement. I think it was around 32%. And then improving brand consistency was 27%. And you think about digital channels are really designed for speed and frequency, whereas the print on paper, direct mail, catalogs, they're designed for attention and memorability. So they align very closely with the benefits of direct mail, these top communication priorities. And you can also, obviously, there's benefits, which I'll talk in a minute, of incorporating and integrating digital channels with print, but you need that print component. The next study was around political mail. And this is something we look at very closely because we do produce paper that is utilized by political mail printers. So the USPS has done a study since 2016 on voter behaviors and preferences across political ad channels. And it's provided us with an opportunity to look at how direct mail continues to reach voters even when the attention's fragmented. And there's a lot of skepticism toward digital messaging. That's on the rise. The most recent election research includes insights from the 2025 gubernatorial elections and key mayoral races. So that's a compelling predictor for the upcoming midterm elections, which is why we're interested in it. And you can compare insights across these election cycles. So we can see how year over year direct mail, political mail that comes into their mailbox consistently cuts through the clutter of digital. So I just pulled out on this slide some of the most interesting stats. And the study shows that direct mail is highly effective, and it's a very trusted political advertising channel, cutting, like I said, through the digital noise. It influences voter opinions, it drives engagement, and its impact is maximized based on early and consistent timing. So the earlier you can get into the political cycle and start communicating through print on paper, the more personalized your messages are. So that's where you get into the digital print. So you can personalize your messaging to your either a geography or an actual individual. The design's important, and then the integration with digital channels. But as I said before, if you think about newspapers, and it's the same thing. I mean, you see how digital communications are not as trusted. Studies have shown that for years. They're not as trusted as print on paper is. Print on paper is looked at as something that is more thought is put into it and more factual. And that's all in this study. So if you're interested, like I said, the link is at the bottom, but it's very interesting how the political mail compares to the digital, and how people look at it very differently.
The most of the news publishers that are in our audience do magazines.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we did have Cherry Road on a natural show I was doing on my podcast, who explained that sometimes the magazine in some of these markets, they do lifestyle publications, if you know what I mean, or niche pubs, and niche is huge right now.
Yes.
They said that they help finance the newsroom because those niche. Do you have any data on magazines that you can share?
Yeah, actually, I have.
Because
the next slide, I think, is magazine.
Because they tend to attract all those high-end advertisers, the big
right luxury.
Go to the next slide.
If you'll go to the next slide, Steve. The luxury publications, the magazines, are extremely effective right now. Magazine ads in those publications, but I pulled up this study because I thought this was interesting. We sell magazine paper. We have a lot of customers that print magazines and utilize magazines.
Dave, you print a lot of the magazines for some of the news publishers, correct?
We do. We have quite a few customers that produce their publications here. And if I could just jump this in real quick, the cost of newsprint is just going up and up and up. The demand on coated free sheet is going up, but the basis weight is going down. So those of you in the audience who are listening to this, who are printing on newsprint, there'll come a point where it won't be as cost effective to print on newsprint as it is to print on a coated sheet. The advantage to being on a coated sheet is that you can print more four-color, prettier colors, and that you can sell your advertising for more dollars. So there's going to come a crossing point here in the industry, and it's just when. Well, weights are going down, newsprint's going up.
As I said, Cherry Road is doing amazing things with these electronic printers now for their. I don't remember where the apex is. I think it's about near 2,000. If your run is 2,000 or less, it's actually more cost effective to. And you should see what they look gorgeous. These weekly newspapers. The ads are vibrant. The colors. Right. I'm sorry, Angie, we're interrupting you.
No, go right ahead.
But there's a gentleman in here who says we have a print mag 6 issues a year. Many of these publishers they're pulling in, as you said, the luxury people, but it's also the healthcare industry that loves this. The high end dermatology. I don't even know what a microdermabrasion is, but with those things, with cosmetic dentistry. I mean, all these high ends in these small towns, they love that print vibrance, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. And that's another thing when you look generationally. I don't know if the person that has the magazines, but Gen Z loves print magazines. They love being able. I have a daughter who's 22, and she loves being able to relax and just rifle through a magazine and dog ear the articles she wants to look at and all of that stuff. So it is very much come back for that younger generation that is tired of digital. And there's a ton of studies out there that will talk about the draw of Gen Z to these magazines, to any kind of print on paper, really. And I have if anyone's interested, we did a study on specialty publications. So we have a whole deck on specialty magazine publications that I could send if people want to see it. We did that a few months back, which is really interesting. Some of this is in there, but it's a deck really more dedicated to the publisher, the specialty publications. But
send it to me, Angie, and I'll make sure it's on our landing page. Let's keep moving, though. We're running out of time, so
So just
it
for
on.
talking about magazines, I won't go through this too much, but I think people, if you have a magazine, you probably already know this. 77% of adults feel positive when reading magazines, more so than with newspapers. That's 67%. Radio is 75%, and social media is around 59%. People respond more favorably to brands they see advertised in magazines. There's an 18% increase in brand favorability, a 90% increase in likelihood to try new things if they see the brand in a magazine, and a 35% increase in likelihood to buy an advertised product. So those show the continued marketing power of magazines. The other thing I found interesting is the last bullet. Magazines retain their value beyond the first reader. A single magazine copy is read on average by over 7 people. So people don't just buy a magazine, read it, and throw it away. They leave it on their coffee table or on their dorm room table or whatever, and it is read by multiple people.
For all the publishers that are out there watching this, you should take a screenshot of this and put this in your media kit so that when you're out there, your sales staff is selling advertising, they can show this.
We'll have it.
Data.
This whole deck will be in our downloads, but yeah, if you want to grab a sneak, go ahead, everyone. Take a quick snap.
The next one is really cool too, Mike. The next slide, Steve, is there's this to me, and I'm a nerd when it comes to print on paper. I love any kind of research that's been done, because I believe in it. I believe in the effectiveness, and I don't really understand why companies and marketers are not paying attention to the importance of print on paper. I think it's very easy for people to say it's the price, the cost, but they don't look at the impact versus digital that print on paper can have. So if you look at this slide, this talks about, we've talked about magazine print advertising, which is effective for luxury products, travel and entertainment, lifestyle, fashion. Almost 80% of people who see an ad in a magazine take some sort of action. 25% seek more information, and 23% visit the website. So Dentsu, which is a leading advertising, marketing, and digital transformation company, and Lumen is an attention measurement company. They partnered to undertake one of the largest studies of its kind around attention. So I'm sure everyone on the call has heard of this renewed focus on attention. It's not just views. It's how much attention does something draw from your audience. How much time do they spend? How much do they pay attention to it? They've been measuring attention to advertising through eye tracking since March 2018. And their goal is to establish the value of attention as a medium effectiveness metric. So this graphic came from their study, shows that only a few media channels are able to hold viewers' attention for more than about 2 or 3 seconds on average. I hope you can see it there, but it's giving you a list of options of media channels and the attention that it holds. You look at ads on channels like TV and magazines, which are way out there on the scale. They can hold attention for over 20 seconds. And that's an opportunity to give a longer story, tell a longer story that's more likely to be retained in long-term memory and influence purchase decisions for months or even years to come. So it's a really interesting study that they've done on how magazines, for us, that's what was important. Magazines hold the attention of the reader for over 20 seconds, which is huge compared to, you look at the digital things that are on there and how little people look at it and then they move on.
Angie, we're going to have to race into the
Sorry.
Benefits of print and digital. Let's get to that slide and bring it home quickly because we're running out of time.
Okay. We can actually end on this next slide.
Yes.
This one is interesting as well. These are the neuroscientific studies. If you haven't looked at these, just look them up on your computer. I've got a list of them. The Temple University neuroscientific study is really interesting. And they talk about how print is a cognitive advantage, not just a channel. So it delivers more memory, stronger memory, emotion, and trust. just by being on print on paper. So they've measured the changes in the brain as they look at print on paper versus digital. Print consistently outperforms digital in recall, trust, and response rates. So from a marketing and communication standpoint, print plays a critical role in driving memory, trust, and long-term impact. And then you compare it with digital for scale. But these studies have been shown for education purposes. So trying to get people to not move to digital in K through 12 education, to try to get them to do more print on paper because of the benefits to the student and how the student will recall and remember and comprehend better from print on paper than digital. So I'm done now.
But no, let me reaffirm. You really jazzed the audience when you talked about that other study. Angie, when this is over, email me that because people are saying
Okay.
to see it, and people want these slides. Make sure I get this whole deck if you don't mind. And
Yeah,
because the audience is loving your stuff. I'm just so sorry we're running out of time, but I
No,
want
I talk too much, Mike.
No, you do
I
not.
tend to babble.
Let me have the full. Okay, so we're all done with the screen sharing there. I want to bring both in and have the final segment here, if I may, be now the Sanchez Sassman show, because people are waiting to have some questions. So I'm gonna do a little speed date in here with both of you gentlemen. First of all, to Dave Sanchez. Where are publishers still thinking about print the old way, and what operational adjustments should they be making now based on what we just did as an overview, knowing that sleeping well at night ain't happening in the near future, Dave? You must agree.
Yeah, I like to call it ego publishing, where publishers want the latest and greatest and the heaviest paper and the thickest cover, and it's all based on ego to the consumer, where the consumer isn't really necessarily wanting that. And I think you have to have discussions with your printer, regardless of what printing company you're with, about what papers are available and how to reduce my cost. Because in the end, profit is not just going to end up on your desk as a publisher. You have to seek profit. And in doing that, there are so many different revenue ideas that your printing company might be able to share with you. I know here there are tons of them that we do that are all over the place. And paper is a big portion of it. And what paper are you on? What paper you're going to? Who's your marketplace? With the demographics, it really goes down into a lot of stuff other than knock on a door and say, do you want to put an ad in my magazine? There's so much more that's happening around you today that you need to be aware of.
And this transcends into all forms of printing, correct?
All forms of printing.
I mean, so basically, stop planning too short term, right? Look at the law.
Yeah. For example, if you wanted to jump from one basis weight paper to a different basis weight paper, years ago you could call your printer and say, I want to do this, and then we'd call Billerud and say, hey, deliver me a truck of this paper next week, and we'll go ahead and print on this new paper. We can't do that today. Today, if you wanted to switch to a different basis weight and we called Billerud and said, give me a truck of this paper, they might say to us, we need 120 days for that to happen. That's a long time to make a switch.
There's two seasons in this industry, and I joke with this when I don't talk to. I say we're now hitting the season. I call this season. I'm not hitting my budget season. You watched quarter one. You're slipping into quarter two. You're going, all right. Hopefully you're all. By the way, I hope you're all hitting your budget and exceeding it, and having a blast. But that's it. Then in the fall, it's budgeting season, and that's when everyone's planning. You're finding that people. I mean, should people overestimate now the cost and get it in there so you can under promise, over deliver in your budgets? Because unrealistic pricing assumptions aren't working anymore. Should we assume?
That's absolutely true. Publishers usually they give out a price increase or an ad increase once a year. And then as manufacturing costs go up within that, we go back to the publisher and say, hey, your costs are going up. And the publishers respond with, but I can't go back to my advertiser that I signed a 12-month contract with and get more money from them. So ultimately, it's just less margin from the publisher, out, but the printer's just trying to stay alive and the publisher's trying to stay alive. So you've got to have those conversations all the time with your printer to say what's going on in the industry. Where are all the other different revenue ideas? what can I do to assure that this margin is maintained on my desk?
So basically critical planning right now. Don't,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the key to getting a little more sleep at night. Now, Mr. Sassman, you're a little dark in the screen, but I want to hear your words of wisdom, sir. From the supplier side, are you seeing publishers become more proactive and strategic in how they plan, or are they still, as we just discussed with Dave, not really forecasting properly? What advice would you give to the hundreds of publishers that will be touching this live that are on today and in the recording, sir?
Yeah, and thanks, Mike. I do mainly deal with printers, not so much directly with the publishers, but um, I forecasting is hard for everybody across industries. It's hard to be totally accurate with that, and we all know things happen and emergencies happen, and we've got to adjust and make decisions on the fly. But I would say publishers. Dave and I did not plan any of this, so I think it's just an example of how our companies align in their business practices. But goes back to what Dave said at the beginning of the call. Align with somebody who believes in long-term relationships, and they're not looking for 10 cents a hundredweight every time they want to order paper. They build long-term relationships, and therefore when things happen where stuff needs to happen fast, it's easier to work with each other and try to help each other out, and find printers who have good relationships with mills. Their mill partners are important. Nobody carries inventory anymore. So as Dave said, they need new paper, a different paper than they ordered before or have on their floor. It might take 8 to 10 weeks for us to make paper and deliver it to them.
Just a few minutes left. Let me go to Mr. Stephen Gentner. The pain is why people attended this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a pro-print audience, whether it's magazines. And by the way, most of the news publishers I work with are doing magazines. Some of them are full-service agencies now, direct mail. They're providing all different services. What advice can you give from your huge company that's got your fingers on the pulse of the supply and demand in paper? What advice can you give to the publishers? Because that's who this audience is right now, that have to sell those ads and get that audience into the print product.
I guess I'd echo some of what's already been said. Strong partnerships. I think it's important to develop those partnerships domestically. Know what your paper makers what their strategy is. We're certainly committed to the graphic paper space, 100%. Some of our competitors are making full steam ahead decisions to convert to other products. So it's just understanding who you're aligning with and strengthen those partnerships.
Angie, I'm going to tee you up for one of the final questions. Then I'm going to swing it back to Dave to bring this whole thing home because he's paying for it. Angie, from your research nerd, and you're a proud nerd. I'm glad.
I'm a proud nerd.
I'm a proud nerd.
Mhm.
From your nerd position, I'm going to tee it up. I hope I know what you're going to say. There were many questions that people asked going into this, because when we had people register, we asked questions about, I'm thinking of dialing back on my print. I don't know if you know this, but a Pulitzer Prize winning publication that works with the Poynter Institute down in Florida, the Tampa newspaper now only prints, I think it's once a week. Walter Hussman in Arkansas, I don't know if you heard about this years ago, bought an iPad for every one of his print subscribers and taught them how to look at it digitally, so it could only, and I think they only print once a week. How do you feel about news publishers saying the hell with prints? When I took over EMP, by the way, it was losing $20,000 a month from the previous owner. And the advice I got was stop printing. And I knew if I stopped printing a 140-year-old magazine, people would stick pins in blender dolls.
I think there's a misunderstanding about several things. One, the attribution assigned to print. I think that it does not get the appropriate credit for the results that it gets, because digital is so quick and easy to measure, where print takes a little bit more pre-work to measure the effectiveness. So I think that that's a challenge. I think there's a misconception of the impact digital has on results. And I think there's also a lack of younger a younger generation coming in that understands print. I think that they immediately go to digital because that's what they've grown up with. I don't think that they are educated on the impact that print has and the effectiveness of print. So, I mean, I would, based on all the research that I've done, and the impact that print has on really people's attention, and that's what we really are using as a metric right now, is the attention and the results that it gets. To me, it's a huge mistake.
There you go. I wanted that positive end. Now, again, this audience, many of them are news publishers using newsprint. We brought in Dave Sanchez because, of course, he's one of our most valuable supporters of ENP. And more importantly, so many of our news publishers are doing magazines. I want to brag in our magazine, Dave, I did do this. I wanted to make sure people saw these amazing ads you're doing. And thanks to Angie's wonderful research, think of how amazing your ads are performing in my wonderful magazine that is printed. So I wanted to also thank you, Dave, for your support. I also want to thank our panel, the two Steves, Steve and Stephen. Angie, you were a big rock star on this. The chat room went ballistic. So you're going to have to share with the links to the study. Please share those with me.
Definitely.
And finally, I want to thank our audience for attending. We do these webinars with our marketing partners on a very selective basis. We hope you got value from this. And I want to thank our panel and everyone. Everyone have a great day. Be productive and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.